Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you all being part of my community. And we've had so many great interviews that have been happening and are coming up soon. I'm so excited, even this week, a lot of great stuff. And next month, when the kids are back in school and there's more bandwidth on my schedule, a lot more I'm piling up and a lot of great monologues and live stream call-ins as well. I just want to mention a few quick things before we kick it off. We're aiming for the 1st of August, which is a Saturday, aiming for the 1st of August for our next live stream call in for our deconversion poetry slam. So if you like to write poetry or you like to sing a song or you have anything you want to do, just if you want to tell us a story, anything that's creative that would fall into the category of a deconversion poetry or art slam, please let me know. I'll be putting more information up about that shortly, but we'd love to have you on just to kind of share how that journey's been and how you express that poetically. So I'll have more for that soon. And also, if anyone's interested in sharing your story, please feel free to reach out. All the ways to connect with me are beneath this video. But with that being said, I'm going to bring in our guests. Today, we're speaking with two guests, Karis Burkowski and David Fitzgerald. Karis and David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And David, this is your hat trick, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. This is your third my channel, so thanks so much. You were one of the very first people that ever joined me on this channel.
That's fantastic. Hey, It's good to be back.
I'm so glad you're here. And Karis, I'm so glad to meet you for the first time, and hopefully we'll have you back again someday. I want to do a quick bio here, and then we'll get started. Karis and David are together with us because they're the co-authors of a new book called Clearly Written by Boys, A Woman's Guide to the Bible. I'll pop the image up there of the book, and we'll bring that up again later. But that book, if you are interested in buying it, the link is for Amazon is right beneath this video as well. Karis is a humanist officiant, a religious researcher, an educator, a feminist, and the co-author of a book called Why Men Made God. After she left Christianity during her adolescence, she developed a lifelong fascination with religion, eventually participating in services and ceremonies across a large range of faith traditions. Her perspective is also deeply personal. She writes from the long-lived terrain of purity programming, domestic abuse, single motherhood, feminist activism, and the long struggle that a lot of us have to reclaim our lives, especially from patriarchal systems that tried to shrink women. She lives in Waterloo, Ontario, with her husband Forbes, and she describes herself, if I'm correct on this, as a spirited elder and a feisty crone. Is that correct?
Yeah. Not trying to pretend to be young anymore.
Gotcha. I love it. And we'll come back to you in 1 second for your hobbies. David is, of course, a historical researcher and author and longtime advocate for atheism, civil rights, counter-apologetics, and secular humanism. He's the author of Nailed, the Jesus Mything in Action series, The Complete Heretic's Guide to Western Religion, and the 3-volume Playing God: An Evolutionary History of World Religion. He has lectured and debated at universities and secular conferences around the world, co-founded the world's first atheist film festival, and has spent more than 25 years investigating the origins and evolution of Christianity. And I'm proud to be a co-mythicist with him. And we'll talk more about their current book. But before we get into that, just Karis, especially since you're new to the channel, tell us more about yourself.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm supposed to be retired. I was supposed to be retired for a decade now, but I seem like I'm busier than ever. In addition to exploring all these new ideas and thoughts and so on right now and diving into being an author, I just keep myself really busy with the local humanist groups and volunteering for various things, making jewelry. A friend of mine introduced me to thrifting, which has been an interesting adventure, kind of feeds my forager-gatherer instincts. You go into this forest of stuff and find a treasure. But mainly I like to do that and then remake it into something else, something that it's not. So there's that. And then I've got 6 grandkids, and so I keep busy with all of their adventures and misadventures. And there's just, I don't know, I just feel like every day is another adventure and there's always something to do. So that's kind of exciting.
I love it. It's funny, when I was a Christian, they would always preach in church a lot about how do not consider retirement an option. We work ourselves until the day we die because bringing people into the kingdom is the most important thing to do. And it was always like retirement's not a thing. You know, if you technically retire, you retire into another ministry. But it's so great to be able to think about using our talents, you know, obviously for secular purposes. Yeah. You know, I turned 50 in 2 months, so I'm looking to just being like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making a big difference to, you know, help as many people escape as possible.
Sure, and I just learned recently how to play Settlers of Catan online. So I have friends that are like 100 miles away, and we play almost 3 or 4 times a week, and things
Nice.
like that. Like, you have to be open to new adventures.
That's awesome. My kids are trying to get me into Minecraft. Have you ever played that one?
Yeah, I've seen it. I don't play it, but I've seen it.
It's interesting. Well, David, we're so glad you're here too. I know a lot of us know you and love you and appreciate you so much. But for anyone that doesn't, for that one person out there who doesn't know you, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. I'm an author and atheist activist, as you said. Today, I used to live in San Francisco for 30 years. Now we live in a little seaside Victorian seaport called Eureka in Northern California, up in Bigfoot country. And my wife, Dana, and I both work at our local history museum, which is a lot of fun. We have a great crew, and it's a really fantastic institution. And we also live with currently 11 cats at the moment. Not yet.
11.
We're down to 11. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Oh dear.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I tell my kids we love cats. They taste just like chicken.
We may have one or two of them or more pop in behind me at any given moment.
That's awesome.
Tends to happen during podcasts.
Very cool. I've got a brand new golden retriever puppy in the house, so she would love some friends like that. Well, we're so glad you're here. In terms of the interview today, I wanted to mostly focus on your book, of course, the amazing work you did there. But Karis, especially you first, since we don't really know you on this channel, my audience, I'd love to just hear where you're coming from religiously. What did you hear growing up, and how did that whole story evolve for you?
Well, I grew up in it was a small community at the time. It's a pretty big city now, but it's was a smaller town, and it was very conservative, very Christian. I knew one Jewish person. That was the only person I knew that was not Christian, and Lutheran. And you just went along with everything that you were supposed to do. So I was in confirmation class, and we were studying transubstantiation and consubstantiation. If you don't know what that is, it's when the priest says the magic words, or the minister says the magic words, and then the wine and the bread or the crackers become body and blood of Christ. And I was 13, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is dumb. Like, I'm not going to do that. That would be cannibalism. And I'm shaking my head, and like all of this, and I'm asking questions and saying, surely this is meant to be symbolic. Like, this isn't. And the minister's trying to tell us in this little confirmation class that no, you take it on faith, and this is real, and meet me after class. And that was the day. I remember it to the day when I thought, okay, wait a minute, this religion stuff is a crock. And after that, I started studying religions, but I was studying them personally, like not at university or anything, but I was studying them personally as sort of anthropological. Like, how can people believe this stuff? And what do people believe all over the world? And the crazy ones, like with the funny underwear, or the whatever. Like, there were just so many, and it was just fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating to me. So I really went into it a lot. Like, I traveled to India, went to the Shamadeshwari temple, and the Baha'i Lotus, and all of those different places, and various places around North America. I got to know some Zoroastrians, and things that you don't usually do. Went to see the Rastafari, like just got right into learning about it. I did a pilgrimage, the El Camino de Santiago de Compostela. Walked across the top of Spain by myself with a backpack, and found out the power of pilgrimage. And there is power to pilgrimage. Like, you walk that far with nothing but what you can carry, and you get knocked down to your basic elements of who you really are. And it's a challenge. I mean, you spend 2 months doing that, and you come back different. Like, so I've just been enjoying all of that.
That's amazing. I've got to say, I'm jealous of your ability to see through the garbage and the lies so early. I wish so much that I could say that about myself. I was the sucker in the room. They got me good.
Yeah, same.
What was it like when you became more verbal with your the people around you, did they sort of tell you you're really in danger of some serious issues in the afterlife, or did they respect you? How did that go?
That's not what happened. It was a very conservative community. If I had, like, I got into enough trouble speaking up that I knew that if I went any further with that, I was going to be in deep doo-doo. Like, it was just not going to work. So I went along with all of it. I went along with confirmation class. I got confirmed. I did all of the stuff. Like, it was only in my head and with one or two very, very close friends that I ever talked about that stuff. You just couldn't. You couldn't. You would have been a pariah. You just couldn't.
Wow.
So it wasn't until I got a lot older and didn't care what people thought so much anymore, and got more independent and realized that, you know, they have no hold over me. They just think they do. And I think they do. But if I stop thinking that, then they don't.
Yeah.
So
that's an amazing journey. I don't think I've heard too many people say, I've heard some people say something where they left early, but the fact that you had to go through all those hoops for so long and play the role.
yeah.
I mean, it honestly almost reminds me a little bit of those weird stories you hear where somebody's kidnapped and they have to kind of, for the sake of finding eventually a way to get out, they have to kind of pretend that they're happy there and that they're now going to stay with their kidnapper forever. Like, you had to grow up basically saying, you all are crazy and nuts and indoctrinated, but I'm going to act like you're normal and healthy. I mean, that's got to be so weird, especially when you're the young person and you're more mature than the older people.
Well, and then you have this imposter syndrome going on in your head. Like, do I really think I'm this much smarter than all these people? You know, like, you know, I'm sitting there. I'm not that easy to trick. No, but
Love that so much.
Oh, that is amazing. I'm so impressed and so jealous, honestly. I mean, I know I say it tongue in cheek laughingly, but honestly, like, when you look back after you've deconverted later, when you've been like, it's just been your entire life and you're absolutely on fire for God and the kingdom and the gospel and Christianity, when you look back at it, you think there were so many exit ramps, so many of them that I could have taken. And it just got me, and especially towards the end of the last 5 or 10 years, Calvinism took over. And when you get into hyper Calvinism, where it's all about God's glory, he's done it from start to finish, and he does no wrong, and you don't even understand how dead and depraved you were, and you therefore you cannot judge God. He is the ultimate judge in every sense. You just chalk it all up to, man, oh man, I'm a worm, and I'm God will explain it someday in glory. But I will, sort of like in the book of Job, I'll put my hand over my mouth and just worship God. And it takes a lot of guts to eventually change from that. But David, were you going to say anything else, Karis?
I was going to say one more thing. I was going to say that as a young woman, like when I got a little bit older and I had been studying all of these different religions, and then I bumped into the whole goddess spirituality things, like in the late 70s, 80s. All those neo-pagan sort of rebuilt paganism, where they had the goddess, like the Lord and the Lady, and the goddess represented like the earth, and the God was the living things on the earth. And I just jumped into that stuff totally. I probably spent 20 some years doing that stuff, got to be a high priestess, and all that kind of stuff. But it's because I didn't have the language to know that I was actually a humanist, but I didn't know there was such a thing. So it took me a while to find the language to say, no, I know these things are all symbols and I'm still doing it, but there is actually something else you can be where you don't have to have that cognitive dissonance. You could just be that. So that was all. I'll be quiet for a bit.
I love it. I love it. No, please always speak up. I'll just add real quick that again, speaking of the exit ramps issue, that's something that I've always thought, like, why in the world would we say there's a father and a son, but no mother? And, to learn that the Holy Spirit was originally feminine kind of plays a little bit of a part of that, but still, like, it's at this point, the religion I got was just, women were nothing. That's where I'm, getting us to the book eventually, but it's just crazy that so many things were just kind of, it was on a gold platter. This is obviously bullshit. Anyway, David, before we get into the book, could you tell us a little bit more about your journey in and out of Christianity?
Yeah, I was raised Southern Baptist, and so it was the one true faith right from the get-go, and I knew why all the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons were going to hell. I can still tell you why they are going to hell. And it wasn't until college that I met this girl, and the way we flirted with each other is we had theological arguments with each other. And one day we were going back and forth. I always give the right, proper, Orthodox Christian answer, and she'd give some pagan Renaissance fair hippy dippy thing. And she goes and says, "Well, Dave, you know the Hindu religion is like 3,000 years older than Christianity." And I was all set to jump down her case and go, "No, it's not." But before I could get a word out, I realized I had no idea how old Hinduism was. And I was about to say something that I didn't know was true or not. And that realization that, oh my God, I'm just like the Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm just parroting what I was taught, hit me like a bolt from the blue. Like 1 millisecond, I was a true blue Southern Baptist Christian. Next minute, it was like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa. And from that moment, Christianity never felt anything but fake, obviously fake from then on. And I was a missionary, had a Cambodian mission in Fresno. I was a music leader. About a month later of looking at and just saying, oh my God, this is all made up. This is clearly made up. I just had to go. Just Irish exit. I just didn't explain it, just stopped going. And yeah, never looked back.
About what age was it when you escaped?
That was 19 or 20. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so you've been out for a minute. That's amazing. And I will just add, I think so many of us appreciate your work, as well as obviously Dr. Richard Carey, but the work that you all are doing with mythicism, just to expose the possibilities of how this whole thing might have started and evolved. Yeah. I know it's a lot of it. It's not. I know how it landed. Just saying, there's too many questions to say we're sure, and that there's a really good possibility that it may not have been real in the first place. So I appreciate your work so much.
Thanks so much. And not to jump down a rabbit hole, because that would be a whole other show altogether. But in my last book, Playing God, I make the argument it's not just Jesus that has a dodgy backstory. It's when you go to all the top 10 world religions, every single one of them, from Sikhism, from Zoroastrianism, they all seem to have begun with a purely imaginary founder figure. That's all I'll say about that.
It's amazing how much there's so much craziness these days with the news, with how the current administration is like twisting reality. And you think, if they can twist reality in a world where we can all go check it and fact check it and see the video ourselves, how much more easy would it have been when everyone was illiterate and you couldn't check stuff, and if you didn't obey the local village priest or shaman, you would get killed or ostracized. Like, it would be so easy to manipulate people back then, when everyone died at 30 and everyone was illiterate. I mean, of course.
And there was no Googling, no fact checking. You knew your village, and that's about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's definitely. I want to eventually have another topic, show again about mythicism someday. But for today, I did want to bring us to your book. Let's start at the very beginning. Here I am with the Sound of Music, a very good place to start. Let's start at the very, very beginning. Again, the book is called Clearly Written by Boys: A Woman's Guide to the Bible. And if you could, let's start with Eve. How does this book reveal its patriarchy right from the beginning?
Well, let's just say a little bit more about where the book came from, because Karis and I both met at a conference called BajaCon in Ontario, Canada. And shout out to BajaCon, because this book would not exist without that.
That's awesome.
Organization. Yeah. And if you're anywhere near Sarnia, Ontario, which is just across the border from, I wouldn't say Detroit, more or less, make it out there. It's a great event. Great fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get there. I'm one of these years I'll be there.
It's super fun. Yeah. It's like family.
So we were at this conference, and when I saw how much David knew about all this stuff, I was just so impressed with the depth of his knowledge. And I had already encountered Richard Carrier's stuff in the mythicism. And so to meet a real mythicist, that was really interesting. And hearing what he had to say, and the time we met was right after the Dobbs decision, when they're taking away women's rights. So there's all my passion about all this feminist stuff, because I have lived through all of that. And then hearing him talking about all the knowledge that he has, and the factual knowledge, it was just a really great dovetail. So we just got talking, and it just never stopped. And then we wrote the book.
Yep.
That's awesome. And Karis, had already written a book previously, again, that we mentioned in the bio, Why Man Made God. So this was already in your radar. Could you just briefly summarize, what did you cover in that book?
Well, that one was almost like practice for this one. That one it was like it was more like a textbook. It's kind of dry, and it goes through all of, the sort of the history from prehistoric time to the present, and how our beliefs have changed along the way, and why we ended up with the whole patriarchal thing, and did away with the matriarchies that were actually working much better. But it was written in a style that was not as captivating as this. Like, this book is written in a fun way. It's easy to read. It's got humor in it. It's got stuff that will make you really angry. Like, you'll want to throw the book at the wall. But it's also got cartoons in it, and drawings, and it's just so much more approachable. It's like, okay, the first one was like, I really wanted to say this stuff, but the way it was said was like too school teachery. Yeah. So this one gave me a chance to say it again, only in a way that people are going to like, that would be much more accessible.
I have to say, for a topic that sounds very grim, it's a fun book. It's a really fun, accessible read. It goes super fast. And a lot of that is thanks to the cartoons we have from, you probably know David Hayward. He goes by Naked Pastor.
Yep.
If you've not heard of him, your listeners have probably seen his stuff. Genius.
Yeah, we've got 65 of his cartoons in the book.
Yeah.
And when we approached him and told him what we wanted to do, he jumped right in. Like, it took about 2 minutes.
Yep.
Yep. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I would say the book's worth it just for that alone.
Yeah. So cool. And our other our other artist is Kat Hardy, who just brings these women to life in her portraits, and did the cover as well. And we're just really grateful to everybody who helped. Shout out to Deborah Stevenson, who did our actual cover formatting. So yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, it takes a village. It takes a village to
that's right. We even have two poets. We have Daniel Coffin, who wrote a really brilliant poem that we have at the beginning of the book, and Shelley Segal, who wrote a song that's a poem that's at the end of the book. And so they make a nice little bookends for it.
That's awesome.
Have you ever met Shelley Segal?
Yeah, I interviewed her a few years ago. Yeah, she would
be such a good interview. Yeah.
She was awesome. Yeah, if anyone's watching this, please just go to my YouTube channel and do the search bar and type in Shelley, and she'll pop right up. She was great. I need to have her back on someday. Absolutely. Well, I was just going to say too, before we get back to the Eve question, I just between like the Dobbs thing you mentioned as well as the current administration, boy, what a timely topic. I mean, it's like Christian patriarchy and the taking away women's rights to votes, or at least trying to.
Yep.
It's like patriarchy is on steroids. What a timely topic. So thank you for doing this and sort of taking what we're all so concerned about and making it clear that this is not healthy in any way.
Right.
Well, what we're trying to do is give people tools that they can use to fight against this, like factual information and historical information and things they can say that because sometimes you know what you want to think or what you think and what you want to say, but you don't have the words. Right. And so this is to try and help women especially, but anybody, be able to deal with those topics.
Yeah. I love it. Well, kick us off. What is the Bible? How does it start with making women the bad guy right from the start?
Yeah, and you put your nail on the head. It starts with Eve right from the get-go, page 1. Actually page 2, since that's a second creation story. What we start out the book by doing is focusing on the stories of 5 different women in the Bible, some of the most loved and the most hated women in the Bible. And we tell their stories, but we tell it from their point of view and in their words, as if they're the one talking to you. And just that one little tweak of putting it from their point of view changed everything about it. And then we follow up each of these stories with commentary. Christians are always saying, oh, you're taking it out of context. Well, this gives you the context. And if they try to tell you, no, the context was this beautiful thing. Nope, this is the context right here. And it changes to be fair, most of these characters, virtually all of them are imaginary, fictional. And we talk about how we know that too. But we also talk about, for instance, Jezebel, how we know that that's not a fictional character. This is a hatchet job, and that wasn't even her real name, but we know a lot about her, and we know about what these guys who wrote 300 years later about her says a lot more about them than it is her.
Yeah. And so it was fun to take it from their perspective, especially for a character like Jezebel, because everything we know about Jezebel that we've been told
Yeah.
is, well, she's a murderer, she's evil, she's this, she's a harlot, she's, all of that kind of stuff. We write the story from her perspective as a 15-year-old girl being sent from one kingdom to another kingdom to marry the king. It starts off with her being carried in her palanquin, looking between the curtains. Like, you think about that and you've got a totally different Jezebel. Like, it really works. And with Eve, we start with her lying on the ground looking up because she's just become alive. All she can see is sky. And then she starts looking around and there's this dude sitting beside her. And this story is so different.
Yeah.
I love how you're doing that in the sense that the phrase "scope for the imagination" comes up a lot for me. That's a quote from Anne of Green Gables, but just to have the mentality to say, maybe this story was different than what I thought it was. Maybe it evolved. Maybe different hands have messed it up. But to think about it from different people's perspectives, and I'm sure we'll get to Mary Magdalene eventually, but that I think has been on my radar a lot more, just not because I've searched for it, just because I see other people talking about it, but how you can really sense that whether she was real or not, I don't know, but we'll talk about that too, I'm sure, but just that her character was probably originally a good story. It was a very good, and then it became maligned, and like, oh my gosh, like, but the question is like, do you Christians really want the truth of this, or do you want the evolved version? And sometimes it just shocks me, where Barry and I were just talking about this yesterday. It's the idea of like, if you say you're so committed to Jesus and you want more Jesus in your life and you're a solid Christian, but like, if you could imagine that maybe Christianity was something different originally, and the Jesus character was something different originally, would you want the original Jesus or do you want the evolved Jesus? And you would think the answer would be like, no, I want the real one. I want the real actual original Jesus. Like, no, I want the American evangelical Jesus.
Exactly.
The other Jesus, that maybe like
Jesus, yes.
Like maybe the Gospel of Thomas Jesus, that maybe that's more that's accurate. The Gospel of Thomas Jesus, if he was real. He's just like an itinerant preacher saying these esoteric things. If that's the real guy, do you want that guy? Like, no, I don't want the Gospel of Thomas Jesus. I want the Gospels Jesus. And it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, because even the Gospels, Mark's Jesus, the original Jesus, is so different from John's Jesus. You get the whole spectrum from just an ordinary guy who was really good and God adopted him as his son and turned him into the Lord after his death, to, oh no, I was right there at the beginning of the universe being created and I'm a part of I'm part of God. You see God, you see me, vice versa. Why he wasn't stoned for blasphemy right out of the gate, I don't understand. That makes no sense whatsoever. But
anyway. Karis, could I ask you, just from a woman's perspective, I know you escaped Christianity very early, which is awesome, but if you could just imagine yourself having grown up in it and thinking of the people that you do know that believed it and adopted that worldview early, what would it do to a woman to be told from the earliest days, number one, you weren't part of the original plan? God originally, like, he didn't even think about you, were an afterthought, but I guess I'll pull a rib out and make you, just because I technically need a helper and the animals aren't, enough. So you're an afterthought. You're set up as a helper, helpmeet, as we used to call her. You're there purely to basically serve and to help him fulfill his purpose, but then to immediately also add on, by the way, you are the reason that basically humanity is screwed because you were so deceived. Even the pastoral epistles say that the reason that the women need to be quiet is because Eve was deceived, and therefore that's why she's in subjection. It's like so many ways in which, right from the very beginning, where little girls are being taught this and being taught kind of like it's just a story. It's just, you just need to know historically what happened, but it's not just history. It's worldview programming and gender role programming from the earliest days. What does it do to a woman to be told that without realizing what she's actually, the toxicity of it?
Oh, it would be ridiculous. I mean, you suddenly you're less than half of a person. Like, you can't, you have no autonomy. Like, you would feel like you had no ability to fight this. I didn't ever get into that position, but I know people that have, and that's why in the book, what we do, the 5 stories of the 5 women, and then we stop and we just flip into topics and we talk about things like purity culture and what that does to you, and women as property and what that does to you, and all of those, and this terrible treatment of even menstruation and what that does to you. Like, normal processes are considered icky, that kind of thing. we go quite deeply into that in the middle section, which is about the various topics. So there's the fun stories and commentary. Then there's those heavy topics. Yeah. And then at the last third is relating it to modern women. Like, what difference does this make in your life now that you know all this? And what are you going to do about it, basically? And, so we go quite deeply into all of that.
And what's more, we talk about how, like, Christians love to say, oh, yes, Old Testament, terrible, oh, that's terrible. But now we have the New Testament, and it's beautiful. Yay. Here's Jesus, and it's wonderful. It's different. And we talk about how, Jesus and the New Testament are not that great to women either. And that's where we lost some of our beta readers. It's like, we're fine on board as long as we were bashing, the Hebrew Bible. But as soon as we started, kicking the tires on Jesus, oh, no, too far.
Yeah.
I love, I'm sure Dr. Carrier's blog. He's got this one that he was doing around Christmas time one year, but he basically says somewhere in there, Jesus was a dick. And he goes on to list all the ways, he's mean to the Syrophoenician woman and all that. And it was just, it's crazy how so many Christians, I'm a little off topic here, but it's crazy how so many Christians, they're willing to see the bad stuff and sort of deconstruct, but not deconvert. Deconstruct because it's safer. You can still keep heaven. You can still keep the idea of a meaning and a purpose, but they want to keep Jesus. And it's like, number one, do you not see he's just a copy of other people? So if you really want Jesus, why don't you want Dionysius and Plato as well?
Yeah.
It's like, but he also, like, the bad stuff, like why do you not see he's a jerk? He does not contradict Yahweh's bad edicts. He says, I'm here to fulfill it all.
Right. David Madison, who's a former pastor, he's written a whole book on things that Jesus taught that Christians wish he hadn't. Hector Avalos, another historian, wrote a book called The Bad Jesus, and he gets into chapter by chapter how he's not egalitarian, he's not a feminist, he's not all these things that he's purported to be. So,
well, we don't go as far as to say he's a dick, but but David took a nice turn on that, and it started off this section that's is Jesus a bad boyfriend? It's like a Cosmo quiz.
Yes.
And ask all these questions and then give the answers. And so it still goes through all that, but in a lighter way. Like, we're trying to make this accessible. We want people to read it. So it's all there, but it's the way we present it. And
it's, again, we're throughout the book, we're trying not to bash Christians, especially Christian women, because we're both Christians. We get it. We have a lot of sympathy for it. And this was written for you, Christian women, for the most part. Atheist women, buy your Christian women friends this for Christmas. That makes a perfect gift.
The other thing we did was at the very end, we set up a section for book clubs. So that if you are one of these atheist women and you want to invite some of your Christian friends to learn some of this stuff, just call them up and say, we're going to have a little book club. And this is a book we're going to go through. And there's questions at the back and things to discuss and so on that would be quite eye-opening. So we tried to kind of dip our toe into that a little bit too.
But this book will definitely provoke a lot of discussions, and in so many ways, it'll plant seeds that are hard to shake off.
Yeah.
One of our viewers said, once you see it, it's really hard to unsee it.
Yeah, I love what you're doing too, because I want to get more into the details in a second, but just to make this point, I love what you're doing, because in many ways, I think Christians have done a pretty decent job of ignoring the atrocities and the weird stuff and the bad stuff. They interpret it different ways, or just ignore the weird passages, like where women are more where the passages that kind of make women out to be property, or a guy can rape you in the field and just pay your daddy some shekels of silver, and now you have to go to his house. They kind of ignore that stuff for the most part, or put it into like, well, God didn't want that, but he allowed it. That kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. But what's sad is that
we were ready for this.
But like you think about the Christian trad wife basic movement, they have painted it as, I mean, I think honestly for a lot of women, they do not see how oppressive it is, and honestly they think of it as the best life ever. I mean, that's my background. I was very much in that world, and when you think, I don't want the world to come in and tattoo my body all up, I don't want the bad men to use my body, I want to be kept pure, I don't want STDs like crazy, I don't want early pregnancy, I want a man to stay with me for my whole life, I want my dad to protect me, then I want him to pass me on like property, but to the next man. I want to kind of stay an infant. I want to, I want to stay under a man's authority this whole time. And I never really have to grow up because the man will always take care of me and look and, be the wisdom of my life.
Yep.
And like, it keeps you so oppressed, but then you end up having, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 kids. And it just feels like, all right, you got now a farm and a homestead. You got all the, you're making homemade bread left and right. And it begins to feel like, wow, like I could be serving the man in the office. I could be a secretary stuck at a desk all day, or I could be around these loving kids with my farm and my, my raw milk and all this. And it just, the picture is often, it's like it's muddled because having a bunch of kids is a beautiful thing. I've got 4 kids of my own. I wish I had 10, and I still do. But kids are beautiful.
Listeners, if they're hearing weird noises, because there's a heavy metal rock band in Karis's garage.
Nice.
Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
I can a little bit. Yeah, if it gets too bad, you can mute yourself, but it's not too bad. But like, I think that they muddy the idea of like, there are some beautiful aspects of life, such as homesteading can be beautiful. Being a stay-at-home parent, mom or dad, can be beautiful. It can be, it's real. I make homemade bread all the time. It's a wonderful thing to do traditional things, but they equate it to like, if that's God, like this is the only way to do that is God's way. And then you end up basically having this animosity of it's God's way and trad wife Christians, or you're basically trying to be a, prostitute and,
there's no
die on the street with STDs. It's like, they're not the same thing,
Yeah.
Why do you think women are so susceptible to being in this culture, to not seeing past the facade and saying, I could be an atheist trad wife or whatever if I wanted to be. I could be an atheist with 4 kids. But why do you think they can't see that God is so nasty, that he's such a psychopath?
Well, the thing is, it doesn't give you any choice. I mean, if that is your choice and you want to have that life, then by all means, it's beautiful. But if you're not that kind of a person, if you're somebody who has a different kind of drive and wants to do different kinds of things, and you are forced into that role, you are held down into that role, you are told you're not capable of doing anything other than that role, then it becomes oppressive. Those are the ones that commit suicide because they're so locked, they're so controlled and held down and not allowed to flourish in their own way. That's when it's a problem. If you like that, if that appeals to you, then by all means go for it. That's the thing. It's when it's trying to fight your natural instincts and abilities and forcing you into it. That's when it's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. One thing we do when we start talking about the Virgin Mary on one hand and Mary Magdalene, the repentant prostitute, on the other, is how they use that good cop, bad cop mentality. You can be like Mary or you can be like Mary Magdalene, and it's really interesting how these things started. It's a very different thing. I mean, basically, Virgin Mary started as nothing because none of the gospel writers are interested until we get to Luke. Mary Magdalene is just a name among other names until John gives her center spotlight. But if it weren't for those 2 gospels, we would really know nothing about either of those women. One is probably because she's 100% fiction, and one is probably because she's become 100% fictional. But was a real person in the beginning, of whom we know very little. But what we do know is very different from the repentant prostitute. And we talk about how that happened, how it went from this little scraps of information we get in the gospel to some pope in the 8th, 9th century saying, conflating 3 different women to create this repentant prostitute that we immediately fell in love with and pretty womened her way through history.
Yeah, well, I do want to go back to some Old Testament stuff in a minute, but since we're on Mary's, what for anyone that's ignorant of this, and I know a lot, but there's still some details I don't know. What did they probably do with Mary Magdalene? Who was she probably originally, if she was a real person, and how did her story evolve?
She was a good disciple. She was a well-known disciple. She was actually very helpful and had some money that she was using to help Jesus and his crew do their work. And you tell them about the Pope. I get angry.
It's we get mention of her in one of the Gospels where it's mentioning these different church women who help the early church. And my feeling is, if there was a real Mary Magdalene, she was like a patron of the early church and house church, who knows where. And those names were just sprinkled in for verisimilitude in the Gospels. You know, it's like, oh, everybody knows these church ladies. Well, they were with Jesus and the 12 apostles, and they were there from the get-go. But everything else comes out of what the other Gospels wrote, and how one guy, a Pope Gregory, conflated 3 different women into one story and created a whole brand new character. And we see that with both Old Testament and New Testament, where you get almost nothing, and it just gets spun into gold. And during the Middle Ages, well, not even during the Middle Ages, during early Christianity, especially among Gnostic groups, they loved Mary Magdalene. And as Karis was saying, they made her the #1 apostle, and that she knew what was going on, and the male apostles were just dunderheads that got it all wrong.
It's amazing to me how, again, going back to the scope for the imagination concept, just the idea that the winner is the one that gets to write history. I mean, I think a lot about the Edward Snowden with the CIA. Depending on which administration path we take, Edward Snowden, if he's ever reintroduced to the United States, he may become the hero, or he may become labeled basically a terrorist. And it's like history will write basically who he was. And they did the same thing back then. They write the story of who they want to be a certain way. And do you think that it's possible that Jesus was in fact married, if he was real?
That's a big if. That's a big if. There's certainly nothing implausible about Jesus being a rabbi and having a wife, because that's what rabbis did at the time. But let's not fall on the track of, since we know this about the first century, Jesus must have matched that, you know. So that happens all the time.
Yeah, it does make you wonder though, like why, if he were married, why they would want to take her out. But then you think, well, they did that with Yahweh and Asherah. Do you all touch on Asherah at all?
Oh yes.
Yeah, but we also talk about the early Christian female leaders who were written out or changed into boys, and that happened more than once in the New Testament.
Could you, if you don't mind, can you tell us about that? I know the name Junia, but I don't know all of them.
Yeah, there is no Junia and the husband and wife team of I'm blanking on the name now, but basically they turn them into 2 male names, Junius and Junia. And one of the names is like, oh, we know that's a female name. There is no male name version of that, and yet they've changed it to that to make it into it. And it's like, why would you go out of your way to change women into men unless you really are a closet case that hates women? That's. I mean, we could certainly make that argument with Paul that he just thought they were icky. But to be fair to him, the most misogynistic things coming out of Paul come out of pastoral letters, which were forgeries in his name. So by that time, by that second or third generation of Christianity, they are already pushing down on women and saying, "Oh no, you know, women obey, be quiet in church, don't talk." You know, so you can tell that women were originally a much bigger part of the Christian movements, I should say, and the house churches.
Could I ask you all a question more just big picture? And again, we'll zoom back into maybe go to some of the Old Testament stuff. I want to go back to Jezebel for sure. But when you look at how Christianity has treated women versus other religions, how do you contrast and compare them? And do you feel like other religions, I mean, obviously Muslims obviously treat women like shit, but do you feel like there's some religions that do a better job at treating women with respect? I mean, I know there's like individual like tribes where they're more matriarchal, but I mean, just like the bigger religions, do you think there's some that tend to treat women better?
I mean, that's true of anything, honestly. All religions treat everything a little differently. And Karis, you probably know more about this than I do. But I was going to say there's branches of Judaism that have grown to be very progressive towards women. They didn't start out that way.
And there are other branches of Judaism that where they have the wire up on the post, and you're not supposed to go outside of that. That's like your extended version of your house.
Yeah.
Wait, what do they do?
Oh, it's called an etruv. It's a wire that they string along the telephone poles, marking off an area. And the really conservative Jewish women, they're allowed to take their kids out for a walk or push them in the stroller or whatever, but they can't go beyond that, because that's like their virtual house.
Wow.
And
is that in the category of Hasidic Jews, or is it a different group?
Well, I'm not sure whether they called it what the name is, because there's so many slight variations. It's like the Mennonites. There's so many little variations, But yes, it's the very conservative Jewish. We have one in Toronto, at A Truth, that you can actually see it if you know what to look for.
Wow.
It's funny. I was just my kids and I were just up in Pennsylvania visiting my mom. We hadn't been there in many years, and she lives in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which is Amish country. And we were in this. There's this really big smorgasbord and store called Shady Maple, and there's a whole bunch of Amish and Mennonite in there. And my kids were constantly trying to ask me like which, how do you tell which ones are Amish and Mennonite? And sometimes you can't tell because there are so many variations. Like you can't just say, well, the ones that wear gray or blue or this or that. They all do different things, but it is crazy. But do you think there's any religions that you've come across in your journeys where you'd say that sounds like women probably have the most chance of being respected a little bit more?
Not like, okay, they're certainly the ones that are more like indigenous religions of their country, whether even in some parts of China, there are small enclaves where the women have a matriarchal kind of concept. And that doesn't mean the same as patriarchy. It doesn't mean a pyramid with the women on top. It means it's all about the family and the children and making sure that life is good for the most vulnerable. So it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So there are a few of those, but those are usually older traditions. And whenever you get the more Abrahamic religions or whatever coming into those areas, they squash that. And they say, oh, this can't be, like you're doing this all wrong. And, and it becomes more male centric and patriarchal.
Yeah.
So there aren't very many left anywhere.
Yeah. I was just reading a thing yesterday about early Buddhism and how it was also very anti-woman. But one thing it's interesting, it's almost not even a East versus West or a Christian versus Islam sort of thing. It's a medieval versus modern thing, because even in Islam, you've got lesbian activists like Irshad Manji, who are devout Muslims and lesbians at the same time, and they can square that circle. And you see that with Christianity all the time. In a real sense, our book was written to those Christian women who have been doing that in their head. And we just want to point out that if God is this loving father figure, why would he be such a dick about these things? We don't use those words exactly, but that's what we want to point out, that maybe you're expressing a lot of energy doing these mental gymnastics to make this all right when it really isn't. And that's something to think about.
Yeah.
As a quick aside, it's just the irony of the timing that I interviewed Barry yesterday, Barry Evans. He was talking about the idea that when we evolved into an agricultural society, that in many ways that probably opened up some doorways for patriarchy to take over. We didn't dive into it too deeply, but it's just interesting to think about how, we're talking more about world religions now that are within recorded history, but to think about what would it have been like 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 years ago. I wonder how things evolved back then. And I think it'd be interesting. I wish we had some way to have a camera back then and go back in time and see it.
We do a detailed analysis of that in the book too.
We do that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And in my book, Playing God, the first book is all about that, all about the evolutionary stages that religions seem to have gone through across the world.
Can you give us a quick summary of what you think might have happened?
There's about 7 different stages, and starting from prehistory to where we're social animals, to where we're cavemen, to where we're clans, to where we're and as you get bigger social groups and more inclusive social groups, your concept of what your God is and how they worship it changes, and they change in ways that you can almost say, oh, tell me about your God and I'll tell you about your social structure. Tell me about your social structure and I'll tell you about your God. Because the rules change, the gods change, but the stages are remarkably consistent.
It's amazing. It's years ago I was interviewing Daryl Ray from Recovery from Religion.
Daryl Ray. And
we're talking more about sexuality, but it's just talking about the ways that, like, the way we see pornography now. And he was saying, oh, pornography is not this bad thing we think it of. He's like, back in the day, we all lived in tribes and you saw adults having sex right in front of you. Yeah. It's so interesting to think about the ways that our species evolved. And it's like, we have such a limited perspective, like whatever the norms are today is like this realm of, there's a realm of healthiness for the way it should be. And it's so amazing to think about, again, scope for the imagination of what our species might have been like.
Yeah.
And even just, it's funny with purity culture. I remember when I was in Papua New Guinea many years ago, I was with a group of Americans and some Canadians and Brits. And there, a lot of the women there in New Guinea were like out in the gardens, just doing their thing, but they were topless. And you could see like the American girls and the the Canadian girls and British girls, they were not as concerned about it. They were looking at us to make sure that our eyes weren't like, you guys aren't looking at that, are you? And like just anything, even as simple as toplessness, is like it's through this grid of like don't look, that's dirty, and it's we're so short-sighted.
Well, that I just want to come back to what you said about pornography, because when I think pornography, I don't think eroticism or sex. I think cruelty. I think abuse. I think torture. It's like to me, you don't call it pornography if it's just sex. Like
that's definitely for a topic for another show, because we can spend all day just on that. Yeah.
And I was thinking more ethically created pornography for sure. Yeah. But yeah, there could be some different words that we use for that. Well, can you take us into some more examples? Jezebel is an interesting one. You mentioned that she has a chance of having been a real person. Like how sure are we that she was real, and what's her story?
We actually have extra biblical records from Assyria about her whole family. We know Queen Dido of Carthage was her niece. We just, there's very real evidence for her that we don't have, for instance, for Elisha or Elijah or any of the other biblical heroes of that story.
And we're pretty sure it's the same person.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what's more is that family, the Amrides dynasty, they're the first Israel or Sumerian or Judean royal family that worshipped Yahweh officially. That Ahab was a Yahwehist. All their kids had Yahweh-based names. So this evil foreign woman was actually, she worshipped her gods, but right alongside Yahweh. And that's not the only book in the Bible that talks about all these different things being worshipped in the temple. Another rabbit hole not to go down to at the moment. But and ironically enough, Jehu, who in the story is the God's hero who stamps out all this idolatry, he was an idolater. He worshipped the golden calves at Dan and Shiloh. So the ironies are just so flip-flop. So this woman who helped put Yahweh on the map, her and her family, become pagan idolaters. This gold calf worshipping regicidal maniac becomes Yahweh's favorite. It's too funny. It's too funny.
Do you think that this is a question, probably a little bit more for David, but Karis, if you have any thoughts, I'd love to have your thoughts too. But one of the main ways that I escaped Christianity as sort of my gateway drug was astrotheology. And I know that there are issues with some aspects of it that take things too far, but I also have seen enough to know that the Bible is full of astrotheology. But when you look at stories like, for example, Samson and Delilah, Samson's obviously the sun, Delilah's the moon, and so forth. Yeah. But it's talking about the equinox and so forth and the cutting of the hairs. But you can see the stories. But do you think that as people got away from astrotheology and as a part of their psyche, just like that was their TV, you look up at the sky at night and the seasons, the eclipses, that when the moons, the tides and so forth, you connect it all together. It's just part of your story. That is your Netflix, you binge on, and for probably hundreds of thousands of years. And then it seems like at some point our society got further and further away from being connected both to the planet as well as to the cycles of the space around us, and therefore it's easier to disconnect this stuff. Do you think that that's part of why patriarchy was able to take off? Because instead of seeing the feminine in the sky above us, all of a sudden we didn't even care. The sky is just the sky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a thornier question. There's more going on in that question than you realize. Again, sure. I'll do a whole episode. Russell Gmerkin did an amazing job on talking about Greek influences on the Old Testament and how our idea that there was only 12 tribes when there were 30 or 40 and who knows how many came directly from Plato's book Laws, where he talked about this. An ideal society would have 12 different tribes, and once a month they would rotate each month they'd rotate to a different tribe to take care of certain duties. And all this stuff finds its way into the Pentateuch. But, case by case, he makes the point that this is coming directly from Plato. And that the 12 months, the 12 tribes, the 12 astrological signs of the zodiac, it's all 12 is super special, super sacred, but it's not one or the other. It all, once you have a special number 12, then people find ways to make 12 more sacred. So astrology was before, during, and after Christianity, and it's like Yahweh, El, and Baal. When you look closer at them, it's harder to tell them apart. And the Venn diagram between all these things is very well intermeshed and intertangled. But to say it started purely as astrotheology, I used to be more on board with that, and increasingly I found, oh no, it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah, it always is, isn't it? There's always so much more to say and to learn.
And it's funny, growing up Southern Baptist, we were taught, oh, that's all of the devil. I don't know when that started. I don't know when astrology went from just, it's astrology, it's science, it's everyone knows Capricorns are this or that, to where, oh no, it must, I assume with the Protestants, but who knows? I have no idea. That'd be an interesting thing to look up. It's
on my radar to go through Acharya's book with a fine-tooth comb and to put her back on the radar. She was so valuable. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do. We were unlikely friends because we were both pariahs at the same time. And she was an amazing woman. And one of the things I really loved about her is she was able to change her mind about things and realize when she'd gone too far. And I would have loved her to have been with us a lot longer. I was very incredibly honored to be asked to speak at her funeral.
She definitely changed my life for sure. Karis, I do want to ask about your story, taking it away from the book for a minute. We'll come back to the book, but is it correct to say that you yourself lived through a marriage in which you were considered his property? What was that like, if that's correct to say, or how would you say it? And, it sounds like you were really living under some laws that people would have considered somewhat biblical, and thought of that whole thing as very sacred and beautiful. And yet obviously it was probably a prison. What was that like, for whatever you're at liberty to say, and how do you interpret that now in terms of the healing from all that trauma?
Well, that took a while. I mean, I was young. I married somebody who was older, which I was ill-advised. I mean, I was young and naive. I didn't really realize it. He was several years older than me. And I don't know. It was almost as if you wanted to pick a flower and then crush it. Like it was like everything was fine. He was fine until the wedding night. And the minute we were married, he says, "You're now my property." And I was shocked. Like, it was like, what? This can't be. And anytime I would try and stand up to him or argue with him or whatever, like, he would not brook that kind of thing. And he would turn violent. And I had been used to discussing things and, having strong opinions and standing up for my thoughts and all of that kind of stuff. And I just shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank. And then when I finally ran, like I ran with a little kid in my arms and $125 in my pocket, because the violence got worse and worse and worse. And if you don't stop it when it's just a shake and a push against the wall, which doesn't do anything. If you don't stop it there, then the next time it's harder. And then the next time it's maybe, into a door frame or somewhere where it's going to hurt more, or, and it just gradually worse and worse and worse and worse. And by the time I ran, I figured, yes, he said he's going to kill me. And he said he would kill me if I left. But if I stay, I'm going to get dead anyway. So then you run. When you really feel like you've hit the bottom, then you run. And like, it's so insidious. And people say, like, I would never say to someone, well, why didn't she just leave? Because it's not like that. It's not like there's one day there's a trigger. It's like you finally get to the point where you have to leave. And so it's a long, difficult thing. And then I'm in this conservative community, and they don't think that women who get divorced, you failed somehow. Because if you are a good compliant wife and you do everything that you're supposed to do, and you honor the man who's supposed to be your Lord practically, there's something wrong with you. It's got to be your fault. So when I was on my own, I couldn't get a credit card. Like back then, you couldn't get a credit card. You couldn't own anything in your own name. People look at you like, well, we don't want to socialize with you because if you don't have a husband, you're going to be after mine. You know, like, it was terrible to be a female back then. It really was. I mean, there was a lot of, and so that's why when all this stuff with the Dobbs decision and all these things that are changing now, like why I got so enraged that I just had to do something about this, because it's like, I'm not going through this again. So
yeah. And I think women today, we forget, I mean, young women have no idea how bad just a generation ago, how bad it was.
Yeah, when I hear a young woman say, oh, I'm not a feminist, we don't need feminists, I just want to smack her.
Right? Yeah.
I can't imagine the journey to try to take your power back. It's amazing.
Especially seeing the suffragettes, they literally died in the fight to get that. And then, can't be bothered to vote now.
Yeah.
Just two quick comments, and then I'll get back to the bigger picture. But I was reflecting on, Karis, what you said about how before divorce was really more of an anathema thing you just didn't do it. And I remember sermons as a kid, and it didn't affect me, of course, because I wasn't, involved in a marriage or divorce at that time. Just hearing sermons about how you actually, if you put up with the suffering, including in a bad marriage, you're doing two things. Number one, you're giving God the chance to do his work, but you're also following as an example in the footsteps of Jesus. He suffered. He could have easily said, fuck you all, I'm going to kill you all, Romans. He just laid down his life and voluntarily said, I will do the Father's will. I will take my suffering. This is my cross to bear. And it was almost like being an abused wife in certain aspects of our culture. Was like, that's your cross to bear, but that actually brings glory to God. So you shine the most when you take it the most. And it's just sad. And that
spoken like
that brainwashing that happens through the women who stay in religion and are told this kind of stuff over and over. And even like marital rape, like you're supposed to submit, but your body's not your own. Your body belongs to him. Like, oh my goodness. Like there's just so much. And since our culture is so strongly based on biblical lore and biblical, history, even if you're a non-believer, it's through the culture. Like the situation for women based on all of that is not good, and it was not good, and then it got better, and now it's slipping again.
We still got to fight.
With the marital rape issue, I'm sure you're familiar with the name Doug Wilson, the Christchurch cult and the Christian nationalism stuff. He's the mentor for Pete Hegseth and all that. But his wife, Nancy Wilson, she wrote a book about how to have a healthy marriage. And one of the things she says,
a real happy gal at home. Yep.
One of the things she says is in terms of marital rape, she says a man is never trespassing in his own garden.
Wow.
And just like, you can just see the abuse left and right, and everyone either covering it up or even glorying in it. I mean, that's the hard part, is they're not just covering it up, they're glorying that I'm doing this for God. It's sad.
Yeah.
In terms of, you mentioned the word feminism. I think a lot of us in Christianity grew up with knowing that that's a bad word. That's in the category of, New Age and Ouija boards and feminism and atheism. It's all bad. It's all part of the devil's scheme to trick people. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what feminism, Karis, and David, please, respond afterwards as well. But what does feminism mean to you as a woman, and in what ways would you encourage people that are escaping Christianity to rethink what it means to be a feminist and how that should affect their lives as they heal?
Well, feminism actually just means equality. Like feminism means giving females the same rights as males. And it's gotten so much kind of baggage added on. But basically, that's all it was. It was like, we don't want to be a boss over you. We just want you to take your foot off our neck. Like, let us be human and evolve and reach our potential. Like, that was really all it was. But I am of the opinion now that we should not even use that. We should call it just like normal should be equal, and not normal should be misogynistic or patriarchal. And we don't even need to have the word feminist, because that should be normal. That should be what we expect as, the bottom line, the way it should be, the way, so
it should be the norm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
David, how do you think men can do a better job at thinking through the issues of feminism in the ways that we are, especially as white men, how we have contributed and perhaps still contribute unknowingly to the ways that this is still toxic, and we're either complacent or we're at least not part of the solution.
Right. And you nailed it when you mentioned white, because it's like, it's not just male versus female. It's white versus non-white. It's straight versus non-straight. And, be aware of your privilege and how it got that way, I think is a good start. And I don't know if it was just as a result of working on this book, but now I can't not see it everywhere, every day, 10 times a day, all the time. It just is so, it's like when I lost my religion, it seems so obvious. It's right there in plain sight, that these are power structures set up to put one group on top and divide and conquer. It's like, if you can make the lowliest man know that he's the boss of his home, if you can make the lowliest white man say he's better than any black man, you can pick their pockets. I forget which president actually made that quote, but it's so true. It's like divide and conquer. That's racism, sexism, homophobia, trans, all these cultural issues we get embroiled in. The rich, it's rich versus poor. It's oligarchy. Not to sound like a Marxist, not to sound like an anti-patriarchal, but it's true. It's true. What else can you call it?
Yeah. And even the guys who don't think they're being patriarchal and misogynistic, they don't do anything about it because it's comfortable. They benefit from it. It's not like they're out there trying to make it worse or do it. It's just like they're not going to change it either, because it's comfortable to have free labor at home and all of that.
Absolutely. I'll give you two examples from me, which makes me a bad feminist. My wife is constantly complaining anytime I talk over her. It's like, and she's like, boom. And it's like, I'm super hyper aware of when that happens now. There's a thing called the mental load that when I first heard it described, it's like, oh my God. It's like, we put on women, hey, remind me to do this. Why didn't you do these things? Anytime we put that off onto them and not on ourselves, that's an oppression that's just so ingrained. I didn't even know I was a bad person until somebody explained it. It's like, oh, I get it now.
Well, and my favorite one is, well, all you had to do was ask me to do it. I would have done it. It's I had to figure out it had to be done. I had to think of what needed to be done. Then I had to figure out how to tell you to do it, not make you mad, and ask you to do it. I could have just done it myself. Like, it's that kind of thing.
Well, I take out the garbage. That's
Well, it's interesting. What you just said reminded me of a question I wanted to ask, and it's the idea of the immaturity of men, where patriarchy in some ways is like, we're the men and we're strong, but in many ways patriarchy reveals that men are very immature and weak. And instead of calling your book "The Bible was clearly written by men," you titled it "The Bible was clearly written by boys." Exactly. And was that intentionally to make it clear that we're talking about immaturity here?
Absolutely. I made the mistake the first time of saying why men may God. Oh, no. When David said clearly written by boys, I just went, oh, yes, that is so perfect.
It's funny. We flirted with some different titles around, but we kept coming back to that because we wanted that slap across the face right from the get-go, the punch right there in the title. It's like,
The maturity is off the charts.
Yeah.
I do want to ask.
It
Sorry,
really,
Dave.
the immaturity is off the charts. It's you see them taking pot shots at foreigners, at pagans, at women, all the time. And in this book, we talk about all the times they take, like the prophet Deborah, whose name means honeybee. There were rabbis who said, "Oh, her name means wasp because she's so uppity." Her in the Bible, it's we talk about the prophetess, and says that she's the wife of Lepidora or whatever the name is, and it's like, well, no, there's nobody named Lepidora. We don't know anything about her husband. That doesn't make. But if you translate it the other way, it means woman of fire, and that boom makes it fit exactly. And you see that again. Jezebel, when we were talking about Jezebel, her name wasn't Jezebel. Her name was Ethabel. It was Philistine for woman of the Lord. They changed it to Jezebel, woman of dung, because that's the kind of snickery schoolboy thing they did all the time in the Bible. Yeah.
It's amazing. It really is. I love how you're doing this, because you really are exposing. I mean, you're exposing the stories in the Bible, but you're also, this comes down to psychology and current day and Freud. I mean, you look at, for example, and I'm just going to make a comment, and I want your feedback if you have any thoughts. But you look at current day, where just a few weeks ago we saw these white racist nationalist children, boys, marching through DC, and you see Trump, of course, either applauding that all or at least letting it go, and you just think to yourself, like, have we not learned anything about how toxic this is and how bad it gets? And I mean, I guess maybe two questions for you guys. What's your response when you see our society, at least in the United States, going much more again to this immature patriarchy garbage? But also, do we have a shot, at getting a woman president? Do we have a shot at feminism taking hold, and women's autonomy and rights and authority and opinions and bodies being taken seriously? Have we shot ourselves in the foot so badly that we're screwed, or what's our hope here?
Well, that's partly why we wrote the book.
I
mean, to try and do our bit to make people aware of how we got into this mess, and then give them ideas for how we can get out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we wish we'd written this last year. We wish we'd written this yesterday, but I'm glad it's out now. And we have to fight. We have to fight. We don't stop. That's why we still have what little shreds of democracy we still have now, is because, no, we didn't. We pushed back on ICE. We pushed back on them trying to cancel elections. All the stuff that they try to do and are still trying to do and will continue to try to do. We need to hold the line against that. We need to push back the way we have in historic numbers. And I'm so glad there's more of us than them. And we will get through this. But we have to get through this. There's no two ways about it. It's like, you can't just throw your hands up and say, oh, well, elections don't do any good. If they did, they'd try to make them illegal. They are trying to make them illegal because they do good.
It's amazing when you think that, that there isn't a God behind all this. This isn't God versus Satan. This is literally just a war of ideas. And the ideas we're fighting against are basically a mind virus. And in many ways, it's just, it comes down to, how do we raise the next generation? I mean, this could all die out in a generation or two. It's just, we refuse to let it die out. We want these ideas to continue and even to flourish. It's so sad how we're like, we have such. Did you ever see that movie Contact with Jodie Foster?
Yeah.
When she's taken in that scene to the other planet through the wormhole, and her dad appears to her, but it's not her dad; it's an alien in her dad's form. But he says to her, basically, like, I've seen inside your mind. I see what humanity's like. And he says to her, you as humans have such beautiful dreams and such horrific nightmares. And we're such a weird mix of, like, we have so much potential, and yet we shoot our wounded, and we really are we're babies. I remember Christopher Hitchens, when I watched some of his stuff, he used to talk about how religion was like our first attempt at explaining the universe, and it's in that sense the worst, because it was like our first stab at it. But science comes in and you take better stabs at it, but we stuck with our first stab, and then we're kind of addicted to that first stab. It's like, why not evolve? But it's like, we're still in our infancy as a species.
It's
Well, and there's also the fact that it benefits those at the top.
bingo.
It benefits the powerful, and they will keep on doing whatever they need to do to keep us in this state because it's good for them. It's like Napoleon saying, well, we have to let them have religion. Otherwise, they wouldn't put up with the lives we give them.
The rich. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Absolutely. I want to just say real fast, in playing God, the earliest stage of religion appears to be no religion. And it's like, oh yeah, the sun's a big god, but there's no worshiping of this river god or this hill god or the sky god. It's not until the shaman appears and suddenly he says, yeah, I can talk to the sky god for you. Oh gosh, a couple clams, but yeah. It's very interesting to see how quickly that takes off and becomes what it is today. And how similar like shamans are to faith healers today, using the same tricks, the same scams, accusing each other of running scams. It's the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. We're going to go later to the comments, but I did see a comment out of the corner of my eye. I'm always checking in case there's a troll. But I want to take one of the people's comments. I'm not going to read it yet, but I do want to bring the topic up. Yeah. Are we men bashing? What's the difference between what we're doing and men bashing?
Are we men bashing? What are we saying that's bashing men?
No, we're not. We're not, because it's not, men aren't the problem. Men are victims too in this culture that has this pyramid. Because look at the low wage workers, look at the soldiers, look at the people that are used as chattels.
Yeah.
The only thing is, women are even one layer lower yet. Yep. That's all. But the men, it's not men, it's the system that we're bashing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that's just squid ink to obscure the problem. Because again, like I said, a matriarchy is not this Amazonian flip where now women are at the top and men are their slaves now. How do you like it? No, it's a completely different animal. Yeah.
I will say I appreciate the fact that so many Christians, probably more Christian women than men, but a lot of Christians in the last 20 years I've noticed are popping up and saying egalitarianism is important. They want to keep Christ. They want to keep the whole thing. I don't know why they can see so much through the bullshit, but they're like, we still want Jesus and the gospel. But at least you got to start somewhere. And at least some of them are saying, we don't want the pastors that are telling the women in the church, you got to stay with your abusive husband or else God's unhappy with you. They're calling that bullshit out. They're calling out the pastor that has the affair with the teenager, and it's good,
and we applaud them. I mean, honestly, go for it. We would rather see, if it's going to be a Christianity, we'd rather see feminist Christianity. And we make that, those are the people we're writing for, this book for. Because that's your choice if you want to stay a Christian, but this is why you should be a feminist Christian if you're going to play that game.
Yeah. What do you think the chances are of a female president?
I honestly, in the summer of, 2005, seems so long ago, I was convinced we were going to have Kamala Harris be our president. I was counting on it, looking forward to it. I knew her from San Francisco. I thought, this is going to be amazing. Thank goodness we're over this Trump nightmare. And then boom, it went double down,
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but some days I wonder if she actually did win.
Me too. It's like all the Russian interference,
well, if we didn't have that silly electoral college.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the question about Elon Musk's involvement. I've taken us off track. It's my fault a few times. I want to bring us back to a few parts of your book here before we go to the comments. Blood is a big deal in Christianity in your book. Male blood is in circumcision is okay. The sacrifice of lambs and goats, their blood is okay. Warfare is okay. Jesus' blood with the crucifixion is okay. Yeah. But when you get to menstrual blood, all of a sudden it's awful. Yeah. I know not every religion and every tribe in the world does see it that way, but most of them, especially Abrahamic religions, seem to. Yeah. Why do you think that happened, and how do men in power in these religions use that to keep women sort of in a spot of shame and weakness?
Well, when you come from a religion that has a great mother goddess, the great mother births everything. the floods, the tides are her monthly flows. Like those, when you see it all as part of a big cycle of all life on the planet, it's not awful. But when you take the ability to create life and you give it to a male god, then all those things that were part of the creation of life, that were a part of the female great mother, they get pushed into a negative space. And so they get turned into something bad. And I mean, believe me, it's not cool stuff. It's not fun. But if you look at it as part of the cycle of life, and that you wouldn't have life without it, suddenly it's not such a horrible thing.
Yeah.
But it was pretty easy to make it seem unclean and all of that.
Yeah. We have fun with, is it Gloria Steinem who wrote the so if men menstruated, how much different the world would be, and how it would be.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a 3-flow man, you know, and a 3-tampon man or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, could I ask, in terms of just you mentioned the Karis, the word purity culture, and I just want to envelop it with, that includes shame culture, virginity culture, all that stuff, modesty culture. Don't show too much cleavage or skin, but especially harping on virginity culture. That you mentioned, David, the Mother Mary, Virgin Mary. Virginity is such a big deal. Having a woman that's, as that crazy lady, the transformed wife says, a virgin with no tattoos and no debts is the ideal. You want this woman. I'm sure there might be some aspects of it that are evolutionary. You want to make sure that it's your progeny that's the offspring and not someone else's. But we've really gotten to a point where if you grew up in Christianity and you lose your virginity, whether by your intention or by an act of aggression or something, you feel like such used goods. Men obviously aren't. It's not as damaging to men. Men might, if you're hypersensitive to the idea of sin, you might say, "Oh my gosh, I've ruined God's perfect plan." Yeah. But I feel like as a woman, it's a bigger deal. And I remember as a young boy, I went to this church when I was a kid where I remember this girl, probably 14, 15, 16, got up on a Sunday evening and apologized to the entire church because she was now pregnant. And the guy wasn't there, but she was there, and sort of, the church fortunately kind of said, "Oh, we wrap our arms around you and we will help you." But she kind of had the scarlet letter of like, "I need to confess this to the world. I've lost my virginity. I've had sex." How do people who've been through that, how does it affect you? Even if you escape it, like, in your belief system that's bullshit, it's not a big deal. But on your worldview level, the shame, the roots of it are so deep. And a lot of people still, even as atheists or agnostics, they do not feel safe in their own skin anymore. And I've even just recently, I was reading an article about a woman who is certainly an agnostic, but just saying it felt so weird to, like, for the first time in her life in her 40s, show cleavage, or to just like, you're just not used to, like, your body is just so dirty from from day one. How do we heal from that? Like, when you have conversations with people, one-on-one, how do you help people think through what it means to just be okay with your physical body, including being a woman, And maybe, Karis, we'll start with you probably, but David, I'll have your thoughts on that too afterwards.
Well, again, like, you have to educate them into the fact that this has been brainwashed into you, that there is no reason for you to feel that way. And if we still had the Great Mother, we would be honoring every stage of that existence. We would be honoring the virgin, the maiden. We would be honoring the voluptuous mother, and all of that. And the ability to create life has to do with being sexy and being attractive and all of that. Then we would have the wise woman, the crone, the grandmother that takes care of things and makes the wise decisions. And all of those stages would be honored. And you would be fine with getting older. You would be fine with looking your age. You'd be fine with being young and innocent and stupid. You would be fine with being the mother. And you just have to talk them into understanding that this is something that you've been brainwashed to think, and that it doesn't have to be that way. It's because you've been told this is a thing. I mean, I don't know. I just get I almost get tongue-tied getting so emotional about it because
One thing we do in the book is one part of the chapter we talk about if you were setting out to make a totally sexist religion, how would it be different? And we basically, this reads like it was written by incels, you know.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that incel was the word I was thinking of too, and I was thinking about the immature, white nationalist men. It's little boys who want a lot of power and want a lot of sex without responsibility. In terms of the book, what has been the response so far? I know it just came out like about a month ago, right?
First of July.
Okay. What's the response been so far about it?
Well, most of the women who've read it loved it. A lot of them say things like, "Oh, it made me laugh. It made me cry. It made me angry. It made me so angry at one point I had to slam the book shut and just put it down for a while and think."
Our reviewer said, "I had to just sit with myself for a whole day after I read the book." But the reviews from our early readers the blurbs have just been glowing. We're just so pleased. Could not be more pleased.
And they like the fact that it's a fun read.
Like
it doesn't feel too preachy. It is. I mean, it tells all the things that we wanted to say, but it's fun to read. So that's important.
I think the fact that we're not trying to write a polemic against Christianity so much as we are talking to Christians, talking to Christian women, and indirectly Christian men, but atheist men too, and women, and just showing how this book. Just showing, look, it's so obviously written in this way for this aim, for these means, and our society suffers because of it.
It seems like a lot of us are sort of seeing the resurgence of some ideas that just maybe our society's drifted away from. And one of them recently that's come to my attention quite a bit is I follow this sex therapist that talks a lot about the idea of like the masculine and the feminine energy in a relationship, and how, a lot of times we're ignoring each other or talking past each other, and how really when we help each other flourish, where a woman helps a man flourish in his masculine energy and vice versa, and you just love yourself and love each other. You don't mock each other for your differences or desires. It can be so beautiful. You help each other, and it's just such a beautiful blend. But at the same time, I really do think that there's this with the patriarchy, there's this drive with so many men to feel like they need to be stronger. I need to be, I need to go to the gym and have the muscles and the six pack. I need to be a strong man. And it's like, but it's like, when I was a Christian, they used to talk about the idea of like true strength is not the man that can come in and pick up a huge grand piano. This guy with his big muscles, any big man who's got enough, weight training, he can pick up a grand piano and slam it down. But the real man who's under control can pick it up and slowly, without any dropping, he can slowly lower it down. And I feel like in some ways, we need a generation of men that are saying, like it's a good thing to be a strong man. It's a good thing to be masculine. Masculinity is not the problem. We're not bashing men, but the best men are the women, are the men that are also going to respect women in terms of their autonomy and their voice, and praise them and give them the seat at the table that they've always deserved and probably at one point had, and we took away. And it's like so much patriarchy is so toxic, and I wish so much. I love, like, I've got 2 boys, 2 girls, and I look forward so much as I raise them, especially the boys, to be respectful. I talk to them at the moment, they're kids, so they're all, always fighting and hit each other. I'm like, look to my boys. I'm like, look, boys do not hit girls. Like, boys don't hit anybody, but don't hit girls especially. But like, I look forward to, as we get past that more immature phase, to talk about the fact that, it's a beautiful thing to treat a woman right. It's a beautiful thing to respect her and to be co-partners in this. And I really do hope that the next generation can see past so much of this bullshit that's happened that you all are bringing to our attention. I really think it's a great topic.
Well, I see a hopeful sign. I do weddings, right? I'm a humanist officiant, so I do non-religious weddings. And the couples that I have been marrying over the last decade they are becoming more like, we write into every ceremony that the wedding, the marriage is a place where both can evolve to their full potential, where they can help each other reach their full potential and live up to their dreams and aspirations. And we write these things right into the ceremony. And and that the men are involved too. Like when I have a meeting with them, I want to talk to both of them. When I draft the ceremony, I send it to both of them. When we talk about vows, I want to talk to both of them. And the men that I am encountering in the last several years have been right there. Like they want to have a family. They want to have a woman who is educated so that she can educate the children. They want to have a family where they discuss things, where one doesn't feel like they're being bullied by the other one. Not even bullied, but just sort of overruled.
Yeah.
And I see it at really coming around. Sure, I only married that many people, like it's not the whole world, and I know there's a lot of the world that's not that way, but I am seeing more and more of that, and I like that.
There's another really interesting trend in Christianity that we noted in the book. There's a group called Barna Group that they track trends in evangelical Christianity, and since around 2020, they have noticed for the first time the most drastic schism between men and women in evangelical circles that they've had in 40 years of tracking Christian trends. And that's that now, for the very first time, more men than women are attending church. There's a gap of, I believe, 45 to 36%, where traditionally, I mean, women were the church. They held the torch for the faith. They did all the volunteer work. They made all the cookies for this. They did all the cleaning up afterwards. They are fewer and fewer of that now. So much so that, and they're not protesting. They're not making a fuss. They're just Irish exiting. They're just, I'm done. Boop, bye. And that is really, and everything that's happening politically now is a result. It results in that. And it's like, you think you can have Christianity without women? Well, good luck with that. That's going to be really interesting what that looks like in 10 years, 20 years. We'll see.
You must think of it like an animal that's cornered, like a little rat cornered by a big, huge cat or something, or a wolf. And you think this little rat's making a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But it's because it knows its time is up.
Yep.
And it's crazy to think about. I'm so glad to hear that. I did read about that trend, and it makes me think that, like you said, women are seen through the bullshit. It's funny with the Trump stuff. Obviously, we hate it. We hate it through and through. But at the same time, if you can, see some kind of silver lining, it's like he's kind of exposing the fact that Christianity is actually a very empty worldview, and Christian nationalism. And I think people that probably voted for him, a lot of them are probably saying, what the hell did we do? Like, what we voted for a monster in the name of God. Like, maybe we need to rethink this. And I think he's helping. I mean, I say my job is to help people escape the Christian worldview.
Yeah.
In some ways, he's helped me do my job. I hate the way he's doing it, but he's helped me do my job.
Well, Robert Reich points out that after the robber barons of the Gilded Age, super oppressive, super rich, just oppressing the poor, i.e. everyone that's not a bajillionaire. But after that, there's this slingshot effect where all these social reforms came into place. And he said the worse, like what Princess Leia says, the more you tighten your fist, the more systems will escape. And there's going to be a reckoning. And every day their incompetence and their venal nature just shows itself more and more. There's more of us than them. And all of us don't want to go back to this. So that pendulum's going to swing back, and it's going to swing back hard in a good way, in a very good way.
Well, yeah, you asked if we would ever have a female president, and I don't know if we're quite there yet, but I think that the idea is becoming less of hard to imagine. Yeah. It's starting to seem like, this could happen. This could happen.
Yeah. And as Karis said, it may have already happened, but and so I haven't ruled that out either.
Yeah,
it would. I know it's probably probably just a given, but I sort of still holding out hope for Michelle Obama to run.
Oh,
I'd vote for her in a heartbeat.
I'd vote for Kamala Harris again. I'd vote for
let them tag team.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Pete Buttigieg.
I would love
Winner.
it. Yeah.
Because he's so smart. Like,
Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, that was my dream team when Biden got in. And, not to bash on Biden, but yeah.
Well, I wanted to go to comments, but I wanted to give you a question to think about as I read through the comments. Usually when I end my interviews, I ask people to just give a word of advice to someone going through the hardest parts of deconstruction. Since we're not talking about that in the same way today, could you maybe just think about a woman that has basically had a very small voice her whole life?
Yeah.
And this isn't about academics. This isn't just about biblical literacy and understanding the stories and the historical background. She's reading this and saying, "Oh my God, this is me. Like, this is my life. My life has been." It isn't just that they took away Jezebel, they took away whatever Mary Magdalene. They took away me. Like this is autobiographical, and perhaps if they don't feel safe in their own thoughts, safe in their own body, safe in their own marriage, unfortunately, for sure they don't have a voice. If you could, in a minute when we're done the comments, give a word of advice, each of you, to the woman that's just saying, it's time to take my voice back. What would you say to her? And maybe as a corollary to the men listening, to say, what would you say to the men that need to basically realize how toxic that they've been, or that their lack of empathy and support for the women around them? So if you could be thinking about that, however you want to take that, your answer would be fine. We'll read through a few comments here. Let's see here. Oh, great. Unicyclist 97. Great to see you here. I'm so glad you're here representing the UK. When I read Karis's introduction, I had to put the book down to mentally process what she's been through, as I had a similar past. She's incredible. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. But it's one step at a time. When I first got out of that marriage, I had no confidence left. I was looking for jobs as a maid in a hotel, making beds and folding sheets. I was so broken down. It took a lot of years to get back to being the person I was before I got married, and then to grow from there.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, MSI says, "Wow, this title is somewhat inflammatory." Thank you. I'm glad.
I like that.
The name of their book, but yeah, not my title, but yeah, we hope so. We hope we're ruffling some feathers.
Yeah.
Joel Ding says, gives a heart. Joel again says the title is accurate, especially when you read the book's contents. Yeah. The title is accurate and hilarious. High Priestess Humanist. Yep, I love that. Theological flirting. I was going to say, like for David going to your story, that's like the theological foreplay.
Absolutely.
Let's arouse each other over Calvinism. Baranzi, is this an open panel? No, we do open panels sometimes, but this one was not. Mark, and also in the UK, hey to everybody. Grace Meyer says, "Greetings from Detroit, across the river from Windsor." Nice.
Come to BajaCon.
Yeah, come to Baja. We'll see you there.
Yes, absolutely. Ron Crocker, I'm not sure how to interpret this one. Next vote, insult to injury.
Yeah.
Keep going moving here. Mark says, "No surprise the Jezebel narrative was written by the patriarchy."
Right. Yeah.
And Jesus was a dick. Joel again says, "I still regularly use the Jesus is a dick article." Yeah, I go to it a lot. Dr. Curry did a great job. So many people claim to love Jesus without having read the Bible. Yeah, the cherry picking, when you escape, you're like, we cherry picked so badly.
I was watching Jimmy Snow and Promise Buckland do a show on the line yesterday where they were talking to a teenage Christian girl, pastor's daughter, and she clearly has not been reading her Bible, because and the Bible says, no, the Bible doesn't say, Jesus don't say that. It's like, wow. It was very interesting to see how well she had been cherry picking and inflating, putting things in there that weren't in there. Yeah.
I'm not sure what's worse, the people that don't know their Bible, the people that do and still defend it. I was in the second category, so I may have been arguably worse.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun and enlightening book. Yeah, absolutely. Between the early Gospels and the later church narrative of Mary is the Gnostic Gospel. Yeah. It is not known when it was written. It may even have been contemporary with the other Gospels.
Gnostic Gospels, we would say. I mean, Gnostic is becoming a problematic word, but yes, there was a whole Gnostic movement of Christianity, and there was more than one gospel about that, for sure.
Yeah, depicts her as Jesus' closest disciple.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We talk about that in the book too.
Yeah, we do.
MSI, I'm already lost. I guess I have to read the book. Yeah, I'm sorry. We may have jumped over some stuff, but yeah, I would say I would definitely encourage you to read the book. I'm sorry if that's my fault if I jumped too much into some of the details. Joel again says, definitely read the book. It's amazing. I've studied the Bible for decades, the Bible for decades, and I still learn new things by reading this book. It's awesome.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Met someone today who believed that only girls should get sex ed about girls. This is why we have men making laws about things we don't even have a basic understanding of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, especially those abortion laws. I mean, if they think that an ectopic pregnancy can be moved into the right place, or things like that, like this is going to kill this woman.
Or
they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, rape's not a thing. That never results in pregnancy because the body can shut that thing down. It's like, what idiots? Yeah. How do you?
Yeah, to our shame. Oh my God, Karis really loved the whole experience. I'm so ashamed as a man to hear this. Karis lived the whole experience. Seriously heavy stuff. Yeah. We'll take out the garbage. Hey, great. You want a medal for tying your own shoelaces too?
Exactly.
MSI again, the title triggers me, even as an unbeliever now. I hate men bashing and I'm triggered by the word feminist.
Interesting.
I mean, that's what do you want to say about that one?
That's why I think we shouldn't need to use those words. Equality should be normal. Yeah. And when it's not that, then it's misogynist or patriarchal or whatever. But at this point, we're still trying to get those rights back. So we still use those words.
Yeah. But it's interesting that we chose that title very deliberately. And it's interesting you saw that as man bashing because I'm very curious to see what you think after you read the book.
Yes.
We're man bashing.
Yeah.
Some other men.
I would say number one, we're not necessarily man bashing in general, but also there are some men in history that have dominated our collective culture consciousness, and those men were bad men who do need to be bashed. So it's not men bashing, but it's specific men bashing. Certainly the church in general. Like we have done some bad stuff, and I had to take culpability when I escaped Christianity. I went back to people and apologized. I went to my kids and apologized. It's like you have to at some point say, you're not a kid anymore. You have to take responsibility for your thoughts, even for the look on your face. Do you smile a lot, or are you a frowner? Like you're responsible as an adult for what you think and how you act and who you are. And at some point, men have to say, we've been pretty much cultural jackasses for centuries and millennia, and it's time to put this to rest and make amends. And if that's men bashing, I'm okay with that title. We are at fault. White people are at fault for a lot of this.
There you go. Yeah. If you're triggered by the word feminist or racist or any ist, it's good to look into that. And what about that triggers you? What do you think when you hear that word? And that'd be a good dialogue, a conversation worth having.
And I would still argue too that I don't think really strong men would look at a book like yours and say, "Oh my gosh, you're being so mean and you're distorting everything." I think they'd say, "Wow, like women have been through hell and it's our fault, and we need to do better." I think a good man would see it that way,
Yeah. And even if you don't want to say it's men's fault, you could say men can do better. We all can do better,
Exactly.
But I made sure that we said in the book that we're not trying to say that people sat down and deliberately created the patriarchy. Right. We talk about how it gradually happened and how it developed, and then how the people at the top started realizing, well, this is nice. This is good for us. Exactly. And so then they prolong it and they reinforce it, and they condition everybody to believe this is the way it has to be. But we're not saying that it was a deliberate thing. We're just saying this is how it happened. And if it happened that way, we can undo it. Like once you understand how we got there, you don't have to believe this is the way of the world naturally. You can see what it was, and now we can undo it.
And that applies to religion. It applies to racism. It applies to sexism. All the isms. You can see it.
And the scope for the imagination also to put yourself in the shoes of the oppressed. I mean, how many of us would be different people if we would just for a minute say, I'm going to be that person on the other end of the ICE agent. I'm going to be that person on the other end of the male patriarchy, and to say, if you can just have that little scope for the imagination of being oppressed and to realize your privilege in that, perhaps it can change your world. But so many of us just we cling onto our power and cling onto our stories so long.
Yeah.
But I love how you all do that in the book, where you literally put yourselves in the mind of Eve or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
Mark,
how sad to be afraid or angry at half the world's population, just by virtue of the way they were born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MSI says, I understand what you're feeling, or I'm sorry, Mark says, I understand what you're feeling. However, I also think we as men need to grow up and not be so thin-skinned and realize the real suffering patriarchy is still causing. I've never been at risk of what Karis had to live through.
Yeah. Well said, Mark. Yeah.
MSI, I don't condone interrelational violence whatsoever.
Good. Because we're not talking about violence. This is not a, go get them, get those men. It's not a man bashing thing. Yeah. And I'm very curious to see what you think after reading the book. I think you'll realize that. Yeah, it's just mutual respect and boundaries. Joel says, there's nothing wrong with the word feminist. I'm a feminist, and I say that as a male domestic violence survivor. Yeah, Joel, I appreciate so much your story and your bravery. You've helped us, so many of us. MSI says, my dad just sent me a YouTube video this week called Kamala's Ominous Secret, the Dark Goddess. Oh, my God. Oh.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well just put on the red MAGA hat and keep going.
Yeah.
So, I'm a feminist too. It's the only civilized thing to be.
Right.
I don't know. I'm tired of the gender wars. I want strong families. I feel men have so much to offer, as do we women. That's right. Exactly.
That's exactly it. That should be normal.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to call that feminist.
Yep.
Exactly. Families are at their strongest when people aren't trying to play jigsaw by matching opposing genitals and instead just let adults love whoever they love.
Also true.
Yeah. But feminism isn't about putting men down. It's about allowing women to take their rightful place. Yeah, right. Exactly. I get sad about families falling more and more apart these days, not talking about Karis's case, not talking about Tim either. I believe he wanted his family to stay together. Yep. It is. I mean, but I would just add, MSI, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I've ever heard your full real name, but if I'm saying it correctly, MSI,
or MSL,
I think there's just I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a sense in which we don't want families to fall apart either.
Yeah.
But we also want to be aware that there are families that are together on the surface and will be perhaps till the day they die, but they're not real families. They're abused and they're suffering and they're disempowered. And so to say we want families to stay together, yes, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want it to be one home versus two?
Right.
Absolutely. It breaks my heart. I live that every single day, and it absolutely fucks with my mind every day what happened to my situation. But at the same time, you have to stand up against abuse and against the ways that the atrocities have occurred. And we're not, we would love it if men who are abusive and still married, if instead of that marriage ending, if they would just take responsibility, make it right, and keep that family together, we were all for that.
Right.
Go ahead.
The marriages in the generations before my generation, a lot of women were in terrible marriages, but there was nothing they could do.
Yeah.
There was nothing they could do. They were just stuck there.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. That's not good for anybody. That's not good for the children that grow up in this messed up family, and they just prolong it. They just they live what they were taught, what they grew up with. So keeping a marriage together just to keep it together is not the goal. Keeping a good marriage together is great. And if it's not a good marriage because you got together when you were kids and you have evolved differently, and it's time to move apart so you can both do better in life, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And we have to understand that is not necessarily a bad thing.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Here, Mark says empowering women is good for healthy families.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Modern feminism no longer wants to remake women in men's image. It wants to allow women to be women, and it wants the man to grow up and take responsibility within the home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see here. Hello from Harry. Thanks so much for joining us. See here. let me read this handle correctly. What is that?
Yeah, I hate when boxing.
Pithecanthropus.
Oh, is that a
Cool.
dinosaur? Is that a kind of dinosaur?
No, it's part of the brain, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. She says, I hate it when boxing separates male and female boxers. They should be in the same ring. I don't know if I agree with that one.
I don't
I don't know either.
Yeah.
There is strength. I mean, the male body is usually stronger. Not absolutely has to be, but
in sword fighting and fencing, we do men against women, and it works just fine. Yeah.
Mark says patriarchy bashing isn't man bashing.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Joel says sports were only segregated because women kept beating the men, and the men had a hissy fit.
Well, I know when I learned how to shoot, when I first got a gun and learned how to shoot and was doing target practice, it was, it's cute. I was much younger then. We had that, isn't this cute? We got a little girl in our group. Isn't this fun? And it was all good until I started winning. and then, oh boy.
MSI again says, thanks everyone. I'll be getting the book.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
And please do reach out to us. We would love to hear what your thoughts are on it. I think, do we include our emails in the book itself? I forget. But we'd love to hear from you. Mine is everybodylovesdave@gmail.com. And I'm always happy to hear from readers.
And that is true. Everyone does love Dave. So just a few final comments, and I'll pass it all back to you to answer that final question. The Christianity of my parents made me a very angry boy who turned into a very angry husband. Since I left, I went from someone my wife could barely tolerate to being best friends. I'm sorry. Yeah, Christianity will. Excellent.
Yeah, good.
It'll screw your mind.
Yeah, it will. Yeah. And it's very interesting. It made me a very angry boy, and it's like some men never get out of that angry boy stage.
Yeah, it's very sad. Yeah, there's a beautiful thing about realizing the destructive nature of that. And changing it. I mean, honestly, like I've talked openly about this, where I don't think I was doing this in anger, but like when I was a Christian, I believed in spanking. And fortunately, when I escaped Christianity, my oldest was like 4 years old, so there wasn't much time that had passed.
Good.
So I was able to help them both to escape Christianity as well as young children. But also, like I apologized to them for telling them that they were sinners on the way to hell. But I also apologized for ever having spanked them, and I said, it's never going to happen again. Your body is completely safe with me. But it's a beautiful thing, even if you didn't do it in anger, just to say I've messed up and I need to make this right. And eventually it's nice when they eventually say, Daddy, you've apologized enough. We know you're sorry.
But that's good, because that opens the door for them to grow too, to say, okay, I made a mistake. I understand I made a mistake. I'm going to do better, and I'm going to tell you about it so that you know that I plan to do better.
Yeah, exactly. They can do the same if they make mistakes. Mark says, my parents should have divorced. We grew up in a terrible atmosphere because my parents did their duty under God. Yeah, that's so sad. Let's see here. I think there's a little chitter chat between the other people. I'm just going to end with that, with Mark's comment. But thank you all so much for your comments there to our great guests. Karis, we'll start with you. Word of advice for a woman who feels like she's been disenfranchised, disempowered, and any words of advice you would say to men who also realize they haven't been doing their job very well and need to do the right thing and treat women respectfully.
Okay. One thing is read more, learn more, surround yourself with better women. The thing that I had to do in order to heal was to get involved with groups of positive women, groups of and you might start by doing some volunteering somewhere. You might, I got involved with the whole female spirituality thing, and that, I think, saved my life. But yeah, learn about other ways, but surround yourself with good women. Find a way to get involved in things that women that you can respect are doing. And yeah, you might be the little person at the edge of the group at the beginning, but you will work your way in, and you will learn, and you'll become a stronger, better person.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
And David, any final parting words for us?
Well, closer at home, we have a website for the book called clearlywrittenbyboys.com. And we fully expect this discussion to keep going and evolving and spreading. So tell us about it. Tell us what we can do better. Tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what you loved about it. And we will keep putting material and content on that website.
Are you talking about the website or the Facebook page?
The website, not the Facebook page, but yeah, both really.
Both, actually, yeah. We can put bigger, longer things on the website. The Facebook page will be good for commentary back and forth.
There we go.
Awesome. I'll include those links as well in the video description here shortly. But great advice. And maybe I should ask this: what's the next project for each of you, whether together or separately? What's on the radar?
You have to, when you write a book, the biggest part of the work is marketing the book after it's written. I mean, 2 years to write it and then however long to market it.
Once
you
finish writing it, your job's only half done.
Yeah.
I still need to get back on my last book and promote playing God more. Yeah.
I want to see more sex books from you, David.
I actually was writing Sex and Violence in the Bible. If you've seen my YouTube talk, I wanted to turn that into a book. But then all this new information about where the origins of Judaism and the origins of Islam came out, and I said, oh, no, we got to put that on hold. And then as soon as I was done getting that out, we started talking about this and like, oh, no, we got to get this book out now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, gradually, everything I was putting in the sex and violence books is getting put in these other books. But I think, that if I when I get around to it, I think that's going to be the next one is sex and violence in the Bible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Karis, do you think you'll ever write an autobiography?
No. My story is common. There are so many women who've been through that story.
Wow.
I mean, okay, maybe they would never write a book about it. I'm not sure I want to write a book about it either. Even just writing the little bit that I put at the very like the one page I put at the beginning of the book, I had a couple weeks of like bad dreams and stuff again, just going back, even just that little bit. So I probably won't. I'll talk about it to people who want to talk about it and learn from it and help them. But I don't think I could go back and be in that space.
Yeah.
One thing maybe we could work on is a book for newly deconstructed Christians.
Yeah, maybe
a follow-up to this book.
Yes, that could be a possible.
Now, there's some books I'm really looking forward to. Promise Backlund has a book called Gospel of Lies that's coming out, I think, this month. I'm looking forward to that. Greta Christina has written books on a new Christian. Dan Barker has written a lot of books on being a new Christian. There's a lot of good authors out there writing good books about, what do I do now that I've, as you say, I've lost everything. I haven't just lost Jezebel. I haven't just lost the devil. I've lost my whole self. And there's a lot of good books there.
It is such a weird, crazy journey, isn't it, to escape like that? I've been out for about 6.5 years, and it blows your mind at first, but it's so good to hear stories like the ones I do on this channel with my guests, because it gives other people, I think, that sense of like, okay, you went through it, and you obviously are fine, and you're laughing about it now, even you're smiling, and you get grounded, you get your community, and just give other people that sense that your journey can be someone else's survival manual. And it's just so weird at first, and especially for some people where they're in a situation where this is going to cost you perhaps a marriage or a job, or whatever. It's hard. It's really hard.
Absolutely. Well, and kudos to you for doing what you're doing. This podcast is amazing resource and help to people who are exactly in that position.
Thank you.
We're very honored to be here.
Yes.
It's a privilege and honor to be part of this. It's great. I love it. I love saying that I love the diversity of different people that come on, because I feel like as much as I would want my story to be like this impactful thing, I know it's not going to hit everybody, but there's certain people where someone's gonna be like, all right, you're my skin color, or you went from my denominational background, and they're going to relate more to them, and my questions jump in, but it's mostly about the person's story, and someone's going to maybe appreciate the channel in general, but more appreciate some specific person that's going to come on and be like, your story is just like mine. And I feel like I want to get through as many as I can, so that there's enough that someone's going to say, that's me,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not just religion. As we talk about, it's sexism, it's racism. It's like, the more you hear, like, somebody who comes out of the closet, someone who had to deal with racism, the more you get the common humanity that we all have. And it just brings us closer together as people. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll bring us to a wrap up here. I just wanted to say real quick, To both of you, thank you for the book and for your time. Karis, I especially thank you for your vulnerability and sharing part of your story. I know it's a painful part of your life, and I appreciate your vulnerability with that. But everyone who's joining, thank you all as well for watching, for the comments. If you can, please go check out their website, which is now on the video, as well as their book on Amazon. Check it out, whatever, buy it or download it, whatever you can do, and support their great work. But David and Karis, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.